So we will wait for 1 or 2 minutes and then we will start. Okay, we will start, and I'm sure that our panelists will arrive. Okay. Thanks a lot to be with us, even for those who are far from the mic, from the speaker. Hi. Welcome to this ERCST launch event on the hydrogen infrastructure. This is the second one, and we will make the presentation of the paper that we have, let's say, done. I am Olivier Imbaud, Senior Fellow at ERCST, and I'm in charge of the hydrogen work stream with the support of Chiara. Thanks a lot, Chiara, because she's doing a lot of work on that. First of all, I should, let's say, tell you that Andrei asked me to convey his apologies. He is currently, let's say, with another meeting with the World Bank, and he tried, to do his best, maybe to join us, but I'm not really sure that he will have the possibility to do that. So, apologies from Andrei, and we will obviously, let's say, try to be a substitute of Andrei, but I'm not really sure that I can do that. So, maybe we have some people arriving here. No, not at all. So, as you may know, I have a special interest in the world of hydrogen. Maybe nobody knows what was my previous work, but I've been working for more than 40 years in a company. The name is Air Liquide, and during that, I have the chance, to make let's say, to solve hydrogen for more than 30 years. So it was not the clean one, sorry for what we have done, but it was the gray one, but the same molecule. And when we are, let's say, discussing with the infrastructure aspect, we are talking about molecule more than clean or gray, because we have technical points which are in the infrastructure. So it's something which is quite interesting, because we have done a small private network, only 1,200 kilometers, a small one, with a lot of, let's say, question, but it was driven by the demand. Essentially driven by the demand, because we did not have the possibility to be supported by the TSO, by the DS. So it was driven by the demand, and it is something which works, by the way. So when you have the demands, you take some risk, obviously, and you have the advantage to, let's say, get this infrastructure, and you see that the infrastructure is supporting the demand, by the way. But you need to have first the demand, and then after you complete the demand by the infrastructure. So we have the same issue here, more or less, but at the, let's say, a broader issue. And I'm sure that we will have a fantastic discussion on that. Because, I mean, here we have these, let's say, fundamental mismatch between the demand and what we are expecting. So we need to understand that, at least, I mean, in our view at the ERCS team, that the demand is essential, but it is not the only issue and criteria to speak about, to discuss about the hydrogen network, because when you look at that, there is a demand, by the way, because there is the demand of the industry. There are still 8 million tons of hydrogen which are used in Europe. We do not have make a lot of substitution of these gray hydrogen in clean one. And then we should add all the possibility in the steel industry, the mobility, and all those stuff. So there is a market. By the way, the market exists, but it is difficult to, let's say, change from the gray one to the clean one. So unfortunately, there is a market, but there is a lot of, let's say, technical issues to switch for industry from the clean, let's say, from the gray hydrogen and the clean one. The first one is the cost. The cost is, let's say, fundamental, because, I mean, when we were, let's say, obviously trying to offer the possibility to, let's say, supply hydrogen to our customer, the first thing that they were telling us was the cost. And that's not change. I mean, that's it, first thing. So there is an issue on the cost, which is something that we will discuss. There are other, let's say, questions which are quite interesting, because, I mean, we will, let's say, see that. And we will start by a presentation of our paper, which summarize what we have heard, what maybe our understanding of the situation, what is missing, what are the recommendations, and Chiara will make the presentation, or at least the summary of what we have done and written. Just before, let's say, a discussion with our panelists, that I should, let's say, thanks. I mean, we have two key speakers first. Davine Johnson, I'm not sure that my Davine was good, or let's say, from the EU Commission. She is new in this role, but she had a lot of experience on hydrogen. So it will be quite interesting, I mean, with your experience, to tell us how the Commission is taking, let's say, this issue. And we have seen that this issue is important because, by the way, it is, let's say, the day after the publication of a very important paper regarding not specifically hydrogen, but specifically on the energy infrastructure. So we will come back on that. So I'm sure that we will have our second key speaker, Abel Enriquez, from ENAOH, which is the new, let's say, as institution, or I don't know, organization. And I like that because it is the European network of network operators for hydrogen. I do not have met a lot of national operators, but maybe you will have the possibility to tell me who are the national operators in hydrogen. But it's quite, let's say, it's quite new. It's quite Abel, we were, you are just on time. Yeah, that's fine. That's fantastic. So I was trying to introduce yourself, and since it is very new, I mean, you will explain a little bit, let's say, when you will have the possibility to take the, let's say, the discussion. So, by the way, Abel is co-chairing the round table for transmission and distribution of clean hydrogen. So he knows perfectly. Hey, Nikolai. He knows perfectly, I mean, the issue regarding hydrogen. So that will be the launch of our discussion, because I mean we are waiting for their view on that, and then there will be a discussion as usual with, let's say, a quite interesting panel uh, of people in industry association, and NGO. So we will have their view on what is, let's say, the issue on the hydrogen infrastructure, and maybe on the last publication of the Commission yesterday. Okay, so that. So I will make a quick presentation of our panelist, Federico Dona from Eurofer. I'm still waiting for your, let's say, consuming hydrogen, because I remember that I was supplying, let's say, some steel producer on hydrogen, but it was only for, let's say, the preparation of the surface. That's all. But they're still on it. I'm still. But there is a DRI in Europe, by the way. Yeah. Historical DRI, Hamburg. Yeah. It works well with the gas, natural gas, but I mean, you could switch from the natural gas. It's easy. You will explain us that, okay? So, and we have the oil and gas with Wojciech Lach from Orlen. And I will be quite interesting, because that is the point of view of the consumer of hydrogen, because the oil and gas is consuming the hydrogen. By the way, maybe it was one of my most important customer at this time. But you are, let's say, in the east part of Europe, maybe far from the renewable.
I would say not so far.
Wojciech will explain that, and he's also, let's say, in the Hydrogen Europe. I mean, you are working with Hydrogen Europe for the Hydrogen Valley roadmap, so it is quite interesting. So we have the steel, we have the oil and gas, and we have the chemical industry. So the big three are here. Okay, Nikolai Romanovsky from CEFIC, and he will obviously have the view of the chemical industry and the hydrogen. And last but not least, we have, let's say, Alessia Virone from the Clean Air Task Force, which is maybe promoting all the science-based solutions. So I'm quite interested by your view, because we will have the possibility to have a confrontation between the industry and the science. I mean, that's it. Even if I hope that there is a convergence between them. So thanks a lot. So we will start with Chiara presenting, let's say, a summary of our paper. And I'm sure that you will have the possibility to read the paper after, when it will be, let's say, published.
Yes. Thank you very much, Olivier, for giving me. Yeah, can you all hear me? Okay. So, structure. First of all, to connect the hydrogen supply and demand, supporting the decarbonization of the European Union. Then creating a network that allows a cross-border distribution of hydrogen between member states, as well as diversifying energy sources and reducing reliance on imported fossil fuels. However, today, large-scale infrastructure development might not be justified by pure market logic, and it should be viewed, therefore, as a medium to long-term strategic investment in enabling a competitive renewable and low-carbon hydrogen market that will support the energy transition. So this is an overview of the framework, the hydrogen framework in the European Union for hydrogen infrastructure. We have the hydrogen strategy and REPower EU that sets high-level targets. Then we have the Trans-European Networks Regulation that modernizes the infrastructure planning and regulates alternative fuels. The hydrogen and the carbonized gas market package updates market rules for renewable and low carbon gases, creating ENNO to coordinate the hydrogen network planning. Then the alternative fuels infrastructure regulation sets binding national targets for hydrogen refueling station, and the Renewable Energy Directive and its delegated act, as well as the Low Carbon Hydrogen Delegated Act, establishes the GHG emissions accounting methodologies for hydrogen. Then we have the European Grids Package that it has been published yesterday, and it focuses mainly on electricity, but also to some extent covers hydrogen and other infrastructure categories. Its goals are to accelerate grids upgrades and expansion, as well as streamlining permitting and supporting the rollout of networks. We were expecting this package to be published, and many stakeholders had high hopes when it comes to hydrogen, but in our opinion, the final package falls a bit short on expectations, although includes some provisions for hydrogen. It should be noted that strengthening integrated network planning across electricity, gas, and hydrogen is essential to prevent future bottlenecks. Also, accelerating expansion and the digitalization of the electricity grid is key, because the access to affordable, renewable, and low-carbon electricity continues to constrain the scale-up of hydrogen production. Together with the communication on the European Grids Package, 8 energy highways are also identified. These are key strategic connections identified by the European Commission, which will receive targeted and fast-tracked support. For hydrogen, 2 have been identified: the South Hydrogen Corridor that connects Italy, Austria, Germany, and Tunisia, and the Southwest Hydrogen Corridor that connects Portugal, Spain, France, and Germany. When it comes to financing, the European Union has some funds available. The main one is the Connecting Europe Facility and Infrastructure Facility Program. But projects can also receive funding from Innovation Fund and other instruments. When it comes to the state aid, the Clean Industrial Deal state aid framework is currently confined to project-specific investments for hydrogen infrastructure. And when it comes to the projects of common European interest, we have EPCI Hydrogen Infra that will support 3.2 gigawatts of electrolyzers. When we talk about financing hydrogen infrastructure, we should recognize that financing is a bit difficult due to the market early stage and also uncertainty connected to future demand. Also, high upfront investments combined with initially low utilization rates create significant bankability and revenue recovery risks. Also, early hydrogen users should not be overburdened with grid developments and operating costs. Therefore, a fair share cost mechanism is needed. When moving now to the hydrogen infrastructure development, some years ago, we have this project, the European Hydrogen Backbone, a plan dedicated to the hydrogen transport grid. It was foreseeing over 50,000 kilometer pipelines to be built by 2040, mostly from repurposing existing natural gas infrastructure. However, despite the ambitions, the infrastructure rollout is progressing slowly than expected because long permitting procedures, lack of hydrogen demand, and also little financing are causing delays. According to 2024 ACER's hydrogen monitoring report, despite a lot of projects are in the pipeline, only around 1% reached final investment decision. Also, we looked at Germany and the hydrogen core network as a case study. Germany has the plan to create a nationwide hydrogen backbone to address the chicken and egg challenge of hydrogen. Therefore, by establishing a comprehensive transmission network upfront, Germany seeks to catalyze both supply and demand, also positioning itself as a pivotal corridor in the European hydrogen market. Germany has designed a sophisticated tariffs and financing framework, the amortization account, that allows for cost recovery and ramp-up tariffs. The state can also step in if the costs are not fully recovered. However, potential risks of network oversizing are emerging because slower than expected market development might result in underutilized infrastructure by 2030. Therefore, aligning expansion of the grid with credible supply and demand projection is key for strategic planning. After our analysis, we have identified key uncertainties and challenges. First of all, demand. The key question is whether it is demand that drives infrastructure or whether it is infrastructure that drives demand. Also, permitting, especially for cross-border projects, permitting is causing multi-year delays. The Renewable Energy Directive, in its Article 15E, establishes accelerated permitting for grids and storage infrastructure necessary to integrate renewables into the electricity system. Hydrogen plays similar roles in integrating renewables, but is not clearly included. Therefore, this leads to inconsistent interpretations and missing opportunities. DSOs currently remain under-integrated in EU planning and funding frameworks. And we have technical challenges related to repurposing and retrofitting pipelines because technical specific issues such as gas purity, compressor adaptation needs to be taken into account. And currently, the European Union is also lacking EU-wide standards. Then there is a lack of financing and risk-sharing mechanisms. There is a high capex for investments in hydrogen in infrastructure. And at the moment, there is a limited visibility on future tariff frameworks and the absence of EU-level risk-sharing mechanism. Then, without a coordinating planning across hydrogen, electricity, and CO2 infrastructure, there is a risk of competing investments. Therefore, adopting a technology-neutral view, it would be very important to have a more encompassing planning. Also, as we saw before, the regulatory framework for hydrogen in the European Union is quite complex as the rules and the provisions are scattered around different legislative instruments. So these are all the complexities that we have seen in the framework. So these are our recommendations. So first of all, member states should speed up this transposition of the EU regulations. First of all, the hydrogen and decarbonized gas market package, and applying a fast-track permitting process to hydrogen projects, similar to what is foreseen in the Article 15E of the Renewable Energy Directive, can help. Also, a dual approach is needed, a bottom-up perspective where the member state identify their hydrogen basins, production zones, and local infrastructure priorities, that should be combined with a more pragmatic top-down approach from the European Union, where it coordinates and establishes cross-border rules and harmonized technical standards for indeed allowing cross-border exchanges. Then the financing instruments needs to be strengthened. The European Grids package might provide an opportunity for strengthen this cross-border coordination. But the European Union should work together in order to be able to implement the legislations. Also, distribution operators should be better involved in network planning and be eligible also for hydrogen funding. And to conclude, the European Union should adopt a coordinated and technology-neutral approach, combining different vectors, electricity, hydrogen, natural gas, and CO2, to reduce overall system costs and enhance security of supply. So thank you very much for your attention. I'm now giving back the floor to Olivier.
Thank you, Chiara. Thank you for this paper. As you see, I mean, we are, let's say, positive on the hydrogen infrastructure, but what we were, let's say, identifying is this mismatch, obviously, between the demand and the, let's say, willingness, I mean, to connect all those plants, but also a mismatch between the member state and maybe the EU. Sorry, I mean to, let's say, underline that. We have the EU, which is pushing for this hydrogen network because, I mean, it is strategic at the end. And it belongs to the, let's say, multi-vector energy system, and it will be essential at the end for decarbonize our industry. But when you look at the member state, we have seen only 2 member states transposing the RED, let's say, directive, and 2 member states having a real vision of their hydrogen infrastructure. When I say a real vision, because I mean, there are other member states who are, let's say, thinking about, but not really, let's say, taking this point as a strategic point. And I could tell you that we were impressed during our last meeting by the German who had, let's say, done their work. Obviously, today, they are, let's say, having an issue because they are able to identify the demand. And they see that the demand is not like they were expecting, but at least they are monitoring the demand. It will be less, but at least, I mean, they have the demand, which is quite important, I mean, based on, let's say, my personal experience. I mean, if you have something which is, let's say, monitored and which could give you positive information or negative information, but it is monitored. I mean, you know what you are doing is not an expectation. It's something which is, let's say, a normal process. And it is normal that time to time you do not have the same, let's say, demand that you were expecting. But at least, I mean, there is somebody who is monitoring the demand. And if you do not have that in each member state, the EU is not going to make that, to monitor the industrial basin at the member state level. So that is maybe the reason why we were pushing for this dual approach. I mean, a top-down approach, I mean, which is maybe represented by the last proposal yesterday of the Commission. But if there is not a bottom-up approach, the top-down approach will never work. That's our point. Because, I mean, you really need, I mean, to, let's say, have those two instruments in order to, for the private industry to take the risk, because they know that they have this need, but they know that they have the possibility to connect or not connect, let's say, to the hydrogen infrastructure, and they have the vision. They have, I mean, you de-risk a part of the issue that they have to take into account. So it is basically let's say, the message that we have try to launch in this paper. But obviously, it is something that we need to, let's say, debate. And we have, let's say, the European Commission, and the European Commission has always the first say. But the thing which is quite interesting is that it is new. I mean, we have the new people in the new issue with Davine and Abel. I don't know. I don't want to say that they are new in the hydrogen, but the hydrogen institution, the hydrogen organization was more or less created in 2024. I mean, with the gas package. So there is a lot of, let's say, new thing, I mean, to address. I'm sure that we will have the same information. I will start by Davine, and please.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
Thank you, first of all, Chiara, also for the invitation, and I compliment you on the interesting report, a very timely report also. I'm pleased to provide you with a little bit of context on the regulatory framework that the paper's findings can be contextualized in as a basis for the discussion. Hopefully also already addressing some of the doubts maybe that Olivier has expressed, but happy to speak about that further. Let me start by recalling that renewable and low carbon hydrogen can play an important role in decarbonizing our energy system, particularly in sectors that are hard to electrify. And I think they're well represented at this table. Steel making, chemicals, fertilizers industry, but also heavy duty transport applications like maritime and aviation. And hydrogen also has the potential to facilitate further integration of renewables into our energy system and realize additional flexibility for the electricity system. But to unlock these benefits, hydrogen infrastructure is a crucial precondition. Only through infrastructure can we connect cheaper hydrogen production locations, for example, in the north and the south of our continent, with industrial demand clusters. And hydrogen infrastructure is also needed for reaping the benefits of diversified imports from competitive production locations outside of the EU. Today, only about 2,000 kilometers of hydrogen infrastructure exists in the EU, if I counted correctly, on top of the network that was already mentioned. Some more predominantly privately owned networks in industrial areas. And if you compare that to the 200,000 kilometers of natural gas infrastructure, I think that says a lot. At the same time, our decarbonization objectives imply that some of this natural gas infrastructure could also be repurposed to hydrogen infrastructure. So I think that's why today's discussion is such an important one, and it's important for us to accelerate the development of such a European hydrogen network. Now, the Commission already supports the development of especially cross-border relevant hydrogen infrastructure through the 10E regulation. Since the previous revision of the 10E, so the one in 2022, hydrogen infrastructure, including pipelines, import terminals, storage, and electrolyzers, are eligible for identification as PCI projects, projects of common interest, or projects of mutual interest if they are developed in collaboration with third countries. And in November 2023, we launched the first ever EU list of PCI projects, including, as already stated, 65 hydrogen projects. And only last week, on the 1st of December, we launched the second one, now including 100 hydrogen projects, hydrogen and electrolyzer projects. Under the 10E framework, PCI and PMI projects, so the ones on this list, can apply for CEF funding for both studies and works. And they can also benefit from accelerated permitting procedures. And 10E also requires that projects receive priority treatment at national level and are handled as matters of urgency. The first CEF round for these hydrogen projects already allocated 250 million euros for studies for these hydrogen PCIs. And the second call closed in September, and the results are expected in February 2026, so there could be new allocations there. And then also looking a bit more into the future, the proposal from the Commission for the next CEF-E under the next multi-annual framework, financial framework, increases the budget from the overall budget, so including hydrogen, but overall, 5.8 billion currently to 29.9. So that is the Commission proposal, and I think it shows how it shows the strength of our commitment to upgrading our energy networks and to support the transport of hydrogen from favorable production locations to industrial clusters. However, the last few years, hydrogen developments have progressed at a slower pace than originally anticipated, and we have seen several projects moving their construction phases beyond 2030. One of the key challenges, I think was also already hinted upon on my right side, is synchronizing the development of infrastructure with that of production and demand. We need to avoid a coordination impasse where everyone along the value chain is waiting for everyone else to move first. I think one key proposal from the Commission side in this is the recently launched hydrogen mechanism, which brings together supply and demand and also links it to financial institution. And this online platform is already up and running. It's since mid-November, and the first call for interest is open right now. And in the near future, there will also possibly be rounds for infrastructure on this platform. So I think that's also a relevant initiative to mention here. And then, of course, yesterday, the Commission proposed the grids package to enhance infrastructure planning and speed up permitting processes. And when it comes to infrastructure planning, the package essentially strengthens integrated network planning, so across sectors, across electricity, hydrogen, and natural gas sectors, as well as across European, regional, and national levels. So it aims to deliver more robust cross-sectoral scenarios, improved identification of infrastructure needs, building on evidence-based cost-benefit assessments. And I think this is very important because cross-sectoral planning is key for hydrogen infrastructure, particularly as it enables more precise assessment of system needs, exactly there where hydrogen is unique and has unique benefits at the crossroads of all these sectors. So this can increase investment certainty for projects with strong benefits for the system as a whole. On top of that, the grid package focuses on accelerating permitting and improving the transparency of permitting processes to speed up the realization of projects, including through digitalization of these permitting processing, ensuring early stakeholder engagement, possible shortening of deadlines for certain processes, and ensuring data availability. The package also includes some simplification and clarification for the EU rules on projects of common and mutual interest. And it also includes provision for cross-border planning and cost-sharing mechanisms, also for key cross-border projects. All of these measures aim to ensure that hydrogen infrastructure is built on time and there where we need it, and that it delivers tangible benefits for Europe's energy system and climate objectives. Beyond this, if I may, I think it's also good to briefly remind ourselves of the broader progress that has been made in the field of hydrogen, of the hydrogen regulatory framework over the past years, because we should not forget that the EU is the only jurisdiction in the world that has a complete and comprehensive regulatory framework for hydrogen in place. This includes, of course, the Renewable Energy Directive, setting targets for industry and transport, the delegated acts on RFNBOs, and also on low carbon hydrogen, which is actually in effect as of today. And the hydrogen and decarbonized gas markets package that creates a regulatory framework based on proven regulatory principles that have also been applied to electricity and gas networks, namely non-discriminatory third-party access to infrastructure, regulated network tariffs, and a structural separation of energy production from energy transport. And then, of course, these introduction of these principles are done in a gradual, in a step approach with the actual hydrogen market development. So there's a transitional phase during which more flexibility exists, and a final phase starting from 2033 onwards. All in all, this comprehensive framework provides much needed regulatory clarity to the market, so that investors know today what kind of world they will operate in tomorrow. Member states are now working hard to transpose this international legislation. To conclude, Europe cannot achieve a net zero society without a comprehensive, efficient, and integrated energy system. A more integrated energy system will bring down energy costs, strengthen resilience, and boost Europe's competitiveness. Hydrogen infrastructure is key in realizing such a system in which competitive production locations are connected to offtake clusters. Or as it's already also quoted in the beginning of the grid package communication, I think, our energy infrastructure is not just the backbone of our energy system, it's the backbone of Europe itself. Thank you.
Thank you a lot, Davine. We will have a lot of questions about that, precision, but let's say, give the floor to Abel to complete the vision, because there's now the practical view, and you are, let's say, you have the strong challenge, to coordinate all those new TSO or THNO, if I, let's say, get that. So it's a new for us, it's a new, let's say, mechanism. So Abel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Olivier. Thank you for the invitation to be here today, and the opportunity to present NO to all of you, and to elaborate and discuss a little bit about hydrogen. I don't know how much time I have, because, yeah.
Between 5 and 10.
5 and 10, all right. So I have prepared a few slides because, as Olivier has mentioned, we are a very young organization. I started alone in NO at the beginning of the year, in January, starting with the most basic elements of setting up a new association, a new organization. And then today, after almost 1 year, I think we have made a lot of progress, but maybe better to introduce a few slides about NO and what we are and what we do. So NO is a statutory body which has to be established according to the EU regulation that you see on the screen. Is the hydrogen and decarbonized gas market package. Is the organization bringing together the future hydrogen transmission network operators. And if for gas, we have the gas TSOs. For hydrogen, we call them HTNOs. That's the new acronym in town. So our mission is to promote the development of a proper functioning internal hydrogen market, to enable the cross-border trade of hydrogen, and to support the optimal management, coordinated operation and development, and technical evolution of the future European hydrogen transmission network. At the same time, the regulation gives to ENO a concrete task, and this task is to contribute to the efficient and sustainable achievement of the EU energy and climate targets. So our work has to be orientated towards this aim, to fulfill and to achieve these targets. Then you can see on the right-hand side the family of ENSOs. We are the new member of the family. So together with the electricity TSOs, ENSO-E, and with the gas TSOs, ENSOC, the transmission hydrogen networks are coming to the family, are joining the family. And the three of us, we need to work together, of course. And then at DSO level, we also have concrete collaboration obligations towards the DSO entity. So this is a family of transmission and distribution networks. And therefore, having this family together brings also obligations as well in terms of energy system integration. And it is also part of our DNA. As ENO, and then also you can see our press release we issued yesterday, we welcome very much the grids package because it's enabling more and more and it's strengthening more the cross-vectoral energy system integration. And we deeply believe into that. We believe that we will not be achieving our transition, our energy and climate targets, if we are not able to successfully deploy an energy system integrated system. So that's what we are. In the next slide, you can see the current map of members. At this moment, ENO is bringing together 37 members from 26 EU member states. A large majority of our members are gas TSOs, all of them with substantial and robust plans for hydrogen transmission networks. In some countries, our member is not anymore the gas TSO, but there are already subsidiaries dedicated to hydrogen. So even if the gas TSO and this subsidiary belongs to the same infrastructure group, they have now different remit or task. It's what we call legal unbundling. So for instance, if you look to the case of Netherlands or Belgium, the member there is in Netherlands is High Network Services, while the gas TSO is Gasunie. In Belgium, the gas TSO is Fluxys, and our member is Fluxys Hydrogen. So you see that in some countries, we are seeing already the emergence of hydrogen subsidiaries dedicated specifically to hydrogen infrastructure business. Then moving to the next slide, it's, I'm sorry for the small letter, but I think you will receive the slides later. It's a quick summary of our main tasks. Our main tasks are grouped in, let's say, 4 blocks. And I don't know why it's a bit, the format is maybe has been a bit changed. But the 4 blocks, the first block is about hardware, planning, TY and DP. The preparation of the hydrogen network development plan, identification of infrastructure needs, CBI methodology, repurposing, cooperation with ENSO-E and ENSOC on scenarios, and so on. Then the second block is about what I colloquially call the software, the rules, the network codes. The network codes will bring these rules that will, let's say, define how the future transmission networks will operate, so that a molecule moving from, let's say, from Portugal to Poland will move always under the same rules across the borders. Third block is about operation and transparency, interoperability, hydrogen quality, cybersecurity, data protection, transparency platform. There are a number of obligations there allocated to us by the regulation. And then the last block is typical association stuff like annual work program, annual report, regional cooperation, and so on. In the low part of the slide, you see our progress. We started our foundational process in January 2024. In August, we submitted our statutes to ACER and the European Commission. ACER delivered an opinion in December. The Commission did the same in April. In June, we published our final statutes, and then we are waiting for the final transposition of the directive at national level. And why this is important for us? This is important for us for many reasons, but one of them is that according to the EU regulation, our members are only eligible to become members of ENO once they have started the certification on national level. And to start the certification on national level, the directive needs to be transposed. So at the moment, yeah, Eno is operating, but the official legal foundation probably will take place after the August, around October or Q3, Q4 next year. In the last slide, you also see the evolution of FTEs. We are already 8 people in the team. Next year, we will continue growing to up to 15, and then we will continue growing according to the tasks that we have received from the regulation. Then this is the map. Well, you are probably familiar with these maps. First map is the list of PCI, PMI projects, the first list. The second list needs to be approved. Second map is the hydrogen transmission map from the ENSOC TYNDP 2024. And the third map is the energy highways from the grids package released yesterday, where you can see the 2 energy highways dedicated to hydrogen. This is our scope of work. This is what we will be part of our, let's say, future activities. And this is where Eno will concentrate its efforts to ensure that the future planning of a transmission network in Europe is credible, is legitimate, and is transparent. And transparency is very important because yesterday our General Assembly has decided to adopt an open source modeling tool for our future work. So sooner or later, our modeling tool will be, as I said, an open source tool, and everyone will be able to replicate or to do a similar exercise to what we will do in our work. And this, we think, this transparency is good. This will bring more, as I say, legitimacy to our work and credibility in the scenarios, in the modeling, and in the simulations we will be developing in the following years. So I don't want to go further, but yeah, with this, I guess you can find an open hand in Eno to cooperate with us. Our work will be better if we have more cooperation with the stakeholders. Of course, we want to let's say, to run robust public consultations in our activities and to have very good and quality input from all of you. So please don't hesitate to come. Let's talk about hydrogen now. The work is starting. Thank you.
Thank you a lot, Abel. Do you have, let's say, in this map, let's say, the actual evaluation of the hydrogen demand by member state?
The hydrogen demand, the
global one, and
as you know, probably in the regulation, Eno will take over the hydrogen TYNDP responsibilities at the end of next year. So far, is ENSOC responsible still for doing this hydrogen TYNDP, and the latest version was published a couple of months ago, and there you can find the scenarios for supply and demand also for per member state, the current one and the projections. That's the latest official information we can provide. It's coming from the TYNDP exercise.
It's, let's say, something which is quite obvious, but obviously that will, let's say, create the dimension of your network, because I mean, the more you have demand, the more you will have, let's say, to provide that. So it's something that you have that in mind, I'm sure.
Totally. I mean, we have always heard that, and I think it was also Chiara mentioning this at the beginning, infrastructure connects supply and demand. But by having also infrastructure, we also bring additional supply and demand. But once the network is there, stakeholders who have not thought about injecting hydrogen or taking hydrogen, they will think about that. And therefore, yes, the exercise has to be carefully designed to avoid stranded assets, but at the same time to take into account the projections of growth that we could have. At the moment, yes, the market is where it is. We have seen a slowing down of some of the projects, some projects being cancelled, postponed, but overall, still good projects are moving ahead. And I have the impression that, yeah, we need a project maturity, let's say a market maturity process, and that in a few years, maybe, we will see a different situation of where we are today. At global level, the International Energy Agency has published this global hydrogen review, where the hydrogen market is growing very fastly, which is also a bit, let's say, good news for such a young or nascent market. So let's see how it goes. But as I said, we have to do a technical job. Eno is not a lobbying organization. We want to be a credible and technical association, doing, let's say, the numbers, being transparent about the assumptions we take, and yes, and ensuring that the stakeholders trust on our work.
So you are going to define the technical parameters of, let's say, the purity of hydrogen, the pressure of hydrogen, and the quality of hydrogen, as I see that.
We will publish in May, according to the EU regulation, a hydrogen quality monitoring report. It's an obligation we have in the regulation. It's going to be published in May. And based on that, I assume that it's up more to the Commission to decide. They will provide a mandate to Sensenelec to elaborate a standard. And purity, of course, is one of the key. And you know,
I could imagine
it's a
very
huge
well.
discussion. Yeah. But this, we are already having the discussion for the preparation of our report. Yeah.
Okay, even the pressure. And you're in your big pipe. That's quite interesting because, I mean, it is one of the missing part of what we are expecting, sorry, I mean, back to my previous, let's say, job, what are expecting industry, I mean, to have some, let's say, practical solution, because, I mean, when you have the, let's say, the obligation to run your plant 24 hours a day, you need to have a perfect, let's say, input. So that will be done in 2026, if I...
Let's see. It's more. The deadlines and the timelines are defined in the regulation, and we play according to that. But we also depend on the cooperation with the Commission and what they will decide and the mandates they will give. But I have also good news today. We have received a press release from one of our members, Gascade. There are today 400 kilometers of pipelines, 1.4 meters in Germany filled with hydrogen. These pipelines were transporting Russian gas until very recently. Today, they are filled with hydrogen. These are pipelines which have been repurposed from gas to hydrogen. And repurposing that will be another important element of our work.
Yes. Appreciate that, because I've already done that. So I could appreciate. No, it's quite important. I mean, technically speaking, I mean, it's quite important what Abel mentioned. And there is another, let's say, point, and after I will give the floor, is that hydrogen is not like natural gas. Hydrogen have the possibility to be, let's say, produced on site. So there will be a discussion between the on-site and your infrastructure. And discussion is always a discussion. I mean, that's quite important. So if you have the possibility to integrate that, I think that you will improve your, let's say, technical vision. Okay, that's only a comment on that. Get the produce at the real right price. So I will leave the floor to Federico, who was, let's say, who is representing one of the most potential, important consumer of hydrogen. Federico, it's, I mean, the fantastic responsibility.
Thank you, Olivier. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, glad to see Abel with the new role. We've been on the hydrogen discussion for quite some times in the RCT and also from different stands. No, thank you for the report. It was, I think, was a quite a nice work, and I've gone through with it as well. And I think all the key elements of the difficulties in this ramp-up phase are there, from planning difficulties, development issues, delays, and postponements, and delays in connections, and then financial uncertainties for project developers and consumers. So for you all, I think much has been said about the demand. The demand is uncertain. It continues to be quite uncertain, especially as regards renewable hydrogen. given the current situation in electricity markets, which are largely responsible for the skyrocketing cost of hydrogen production. So indeed, the situation in energy procurement is not the best at this stage, but yeah, we look forward the subsequent initiatives and on energy policy to bring down electricity costs and the others. So when it comes to the progress report, I would like to give maybe just some critical points to the discussion, touching on planning, development of infrastructure and financial aspects to contribute from the industrial consumer perspective. Our projections are not lower down, so we are still aiming at 2.12 million tons of hydrogen per year. I read the ACER report on the market monitoring 2025. They say that we might be we're going to not reach the targets. We kind of all know that on renewable hydrogen, and the targets are the target. The reality matters. So the reality is that we are going to be at 4 million tons of hydrogen produced per year if we keep this pace of installations of electrolyzers, or not talk about hydrogen. When it comes to planning, I think, first of all, we are an incredible supporter of the NOH. We have it in our position paper since the gas package, because we see it as a great occasion to innovate the way we have been doing planning and development infrastructures in Europe compared to the past. Also, we are going to be a bigger player on hydrogen grids, hydrogen networks, compared to gas networks at this stage. So we are happy to see that the NOH has been is up and running, and that we hope to contribute. And I think the planning discussion comes here. My point is, the ACER is saying two things that are quite important. The work at the current ENTSOG level has been the planning process is going too slow. The second element, stakeholder engagement, is very low, and the ACER points out to not enough transparency in the assessments of demand, among other things. And another element that is of interest for me for improvement in the future, and that's our contribution to the upcoming hydrogen strategy as well, because we care about having we would like to contribute data properly, because it's very volatile environment. A project level on the ground. So it is even difficult for us as industry association to understand and predict how our companies are going to do. So imagine somebody with a modeling from far remote, not accessing detailed information about projects to make a realistic assessment. So it would be nice to have a discussion, how can we bring all the demand properly at the table, a dedicated platform, a dedicated group somewhere, in which we can, on a regular basis, inform developers, because they need us as well, and together with the hydrogen mechanisms also that could be improved as to make us more suited for industrial hydrogen demand forecasts. So try to bring the parties together in data collection process, updates, etc. That for us would be quite important. Just for you to know, Article 55 of the revised gas directive, in paragraph 2 and 3, and I will send the document to you. It's already containing some informations on calling for a detailed assessment, a comprehensive assessment of the development of hydrogen demand in priority sectors, defined in Article 3, paragraph 6 of the gas directive. So I think the point is, let's really try to focus where the needed demand is, what that infrastructure needs, what is the geographical endowment in the territories where industrial demands are located. Because if you don't have enough wind hours, sun hours, you're not going to produce anything. And that must be taken into account as well when we're talking about infrastructure development. So I think we'd be happy to be of help, also helping them in going forward to the best of our possibilities. When it comes to development, I can reporting you on the ground. So this is the second point I'm making. On the ground, what I know so far is that planning is important, but it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get a connections if you're going to get it. And delays in either both construction and access to the pipeline are immediately translating in downside costs on consumers, on steel producers. It's increasing our financial burden when we approach HPIs, so hydrogen purchase agreements. So it's all it's all interconnected, no? We sign we go to the producer, we ask them, we buy the volumes, then we need the connection, we go to the bank, and they're gonna tell us, okay, tell me when you're gonna get connected, how much it's gonna cost you, and then we're like, I don't know, or maybe sometimes we don't even know. But again, this is not a critique to anyone. This is the situation we are right now. It's increasing the financial burden on us as well. So that is quite important. On tariffs, I think fantastic developments are, from my side personally, are being discussed in Germany, the intertemporal cost allocation. Tariff design is quite important, especially because tariffs they're gonna make a big component of our hydrogen bill, and especially in the beginning, it is important that industrial demand consumers, which are having an anchoring role for this market, we are leveraged. We should be leveraged properly in the ramp-up phase, and that one should also go hand in hand with a gradual approach to tariff setting for the time being. As the intertemporal cost allocation mechanism provides, there has to be a clear monitoring, regular monitoring of how the demand works, how the demand is developing and evolving. And we need to do that properly at EU level. And then again, starting from the bottom. So on tariff, again, I think what we would like to see is a gradual approach to the tariff setting, where in the beginning, we have a favorable tariff system for the early movers, because we cannot bear the cost of financing as we are the consumers, and we are not owning, neither we are building the infrastructure. So yeah, and what else am I missing? And well, then we need to have also serious discussion how can the EU policy and national policies improve the hydrogen markets. Especially the renewable hydrogen situation is not good at all. And the uncertainty of the demand, it lies there. Yeah, I think the ACER is saying that quite clearly in the report, and they're witnessing also a decline in hydrogen consumption, minus 12%. So we should not put too much pressure on infrastructure, neither on consumers, neither on producers. We need to go and look at what's happening in the markets. And what can we do to lower the driving cost of the hydrogen electrolytic one for the time being. And that probably is going to help improving the situation. That's it.
Thanks a lot, Federico. May I ask you a question?
I always like your question.
No, because I mean, you know perfectly the consumer. Those are your members. So they need to make a switch from what they are doing today and what will be done tomorrow. Do you have discuss in your association the best transition pathway to, let's say, goes from the current situation, which is a blast furnace or the electrical arc furnace, to an hydrogen / electricity, let's say, production. Is there, let's say, the ideal transition pathway?
Yeah, the ideal transition pathway. Yeah, if we follow market approaches, then
imagine that the price
are nice. If the prices are nice, if the prices are nicer than they have been so far, I think, again, as many companies have launched projects with DRP, they would have continued and they will continue. The positive, to be honest, no, we don't have this kind of conversation at company level because there are many competition and confidentiality rules at stake. But clearly, we are cost reducing agents. We need to optimize costs. And energy is going to be 50% of the new steel making process. So if the renewable molecule right now is not there, which is the best option in terms of climate neutrality targets, commitments we have, CO2 reduction targets, etc., then we are going for the lowest, the cheapest option that comes first. We can do this, the hydrogen-based steel makers, because the DRP, as you know, in Hamburg, this asset has been running since 1961 on gas. So the technology is there. Our technical people, our engineers has been always telling us, as you all know, and this is true, that gas can be, DRP can allow blending of gas and different types of hydrogen. Yes, the best transition pathway right now, if we look at if we think under the bubble, under the flooring, the roof of the renewable energy system, you need to take into account your geographical endowment. And that will drive how much renewable potential is in your area. Wind and sun, hours of sun, hours of wind. And that would determine what you can do. And spacing, of course, becomes an option. But definitely the possibility of utilizing gas right now, as it becomes cheaper from 2027 as transitional fuel, as is considering the current state of the renewable energy market, hydrogen market is the best, is the most plausible transitional pathway from a technological point of view, an economic one right now, even though we won't like to contribute to the renewable hydrogen economy and the low carbon hydrogen economy as well.
Thanks a lot, Federico. We were going to go from the steel industry to the oil and gas industry, but I will, let's say, take this internal view to recall that the refinery were asking, let's say, to be connected to the pipe, but there was a but. They got their self-production. So the question that I had back in my mind is that are you going to have your self-production and then the connection with the pipe?
We know that one company is doing that, but it was interesting to see that, so they're going to have a hybrid system. They're going to have a pipe and an electrolyzer installed, but then they went and looked at how many hours, so how much hydrogen you need, how much megawatt hour you need to produce that amount of crude steel. Then the procurement people said, okay, how much wind do we have? How much sun do we have to run the electrolyzer? And it's clearly, roughly, they should be able to satisfy less than 10% of the hydrogen demand with the electrolyzer. And we are talking about a steel plant located on the north, on the offshore, on the northern side of Europe, close to the sea. So pipeline will be fundamental, repurposing as much as dedicated pipeline. So what? Yeah.
So it's not hydrogen. It's hydrogen plus the other energy vector, the issue.
Yes.
Wojciech, the oil and gas.
Yes, thank you very much. I represent Orlen. Orlen is a vertically integrated oil and gas company. We've got 7 refineries in the Central Eastern Europe, and we are responsible for the 500,000 ton production of hydrogen and consumption, so quite a lot. So first of all, referring to the presented policy brief, thank you very much. I believe that this report confirms the current market status, the key challenges, and the recommendations are in line with our market view. So congratulations to the authors, and congratulations for the timing for this report. So quite good. However, I would like to take some time to add some additional points that may be included in this report, starting maybe from something what is really fundamental, but I think we all agree with that. So it needs to be underlined that building this infrastructure for the import of hydrogen, either the hydrogen derivatives, is really key, is really essential if we really want to decarbonize our economies, our industry, and also maintaining the competitiveness of industry. So today, in other words, today there is no possibility for any country in Europe to produce the volumes of the hydrogen that are required under the RED III and other EU legislations. And that could increase the cost at the end. So we're looking for the best locations. This is why we are looking for Tunisia, other geographies. Second very important aspect, which is not, let's say, visible in this report, but today we are debating on the hydrogen infrastructure. Hydrogen gets also the competition, I mean the hydrogen derivatives, especially the ammonia. And this is really important for the fertilizer industry, where the ammonia could be used as a simple feedstock. And when we took into consideration that ammonia got more developed market, more liquidity, there are some import terminals. The hydrogen density in ammonia is much higher than for the simple hydrogen. We may see the options where the fertilizers will go, the companies in the fertilizer sector will go directly into import the ammonia, what will, on the other hand, decrease the demand from their side for the hydrogen. And that should be taken into consideration for that. In Poland, the ammonia producers are responsible for 50% of the demand of the hydrogen. So it's really important for us if we should, build up the hydrogen infrastructure for 10 billion cubic meters or 5. This is a huge difference. Third, very important aspect, especially for the past couple of years, is the security of supply of energy. This is a very important aspect that wasn't maybe so important in the past. But today, I understand that we all are aware of that hydrogen is a key in terms of the fertilizers production and fuels. So if we will decide that we are going 100% for the import of the hydrogen in order to produce fertilizers or the classic fuels, we are giving up the responsibility of the food price, of the transport cost to someone else. We did it in the past and we know how it ended up. So it cannot be such a situation that we are going 100% on the import. There should be some domestic production for sure. And if there is no other way, we should have the diversified portfolio of the producers of the routes of the hydrogen or hydrogen derivatives supply. And this is what we did in Poland. We've got a very good history for the past 2 decades. What we did in the natural gas sector, that being dependent on the one supplier, Russia, we have built up the got interconnections with almost all of our neighbors, bidirectional, LNG terminal, and Baltic pipe that we are using today to import the natural gas from Norway. So for us, when the Russian aggression on the Ukraine started, we just cut off the Russian gas without any energy crisis. Yeah, so it was very simple for us, and this is why we would like to see also any EU regulations or policies that we are focusing on many directions, not just on 2. Yeah, and even looking for our region, we see that 2 projects that receive PCA status, so Nordic Baltic Hydrogen Corridor, Baltic Hydrogen Collector, those are quite good projects because they provide the Finnish, let's say, or Swedish hydrogen for Europe, for Germany, Poland, other countries. And it creates internal competitiveness between different suppliers of the hydrogen. So this is good for the market. On the other hand, even if we've got this, let's say 5, 6, 7 corridors for the hydrogen, are we secure? Of course not. With the hydrogen, it is more complicated than for the natural gas because currently we cannot imagine constant production of the hydrogen. Yeah, when winds blows, when sun shines, then we could produce the hydrogen, but on the other hand, not. So we need to look for the locations where we can store at the large scale hydrogen. And there are some locations in Europe, mainly in Germany, also in the Netherlands, but also in Poland. And for that reason, those 2 corridors that I said, those 2 projects are very good because I can imagine that the hydrogen storage in the form of the salt cavern could be included as a part of those projects. And actually those 2 projects are very close to the salt caverns. Yeah, so that could provide the security for all of takers, yeah, not just the pipeline, but pipeline plus storage. And I believe all the regulations, all that policies should take from the beginning the consideration that we are speaking about the pipelines plus storage, not forgetting about the storage. Going into recommendations. So I think that Europe today, we need as a Europe, the pipelines, but not only. We need something what we could call the triple C. So we need the clarity, confidence, and cooperation. And starting from the clarity, this is the most important. Right now, nobody knows what will be the hydrogen demand in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. We thought that the demand will be driven mainly by the regulations, RED III, which will state quite clearly how many percentage is needed, and we could calculate that. But currently, we've got 4 or 5 countries that implemented RFNBO targets. Not all of them implemented them for the industry, so only for the transport sector. We hear a huge discussion, and this is of course good, but we need to somehow resolve this issue. What will, if the industry will be covered with the targets for our RFNBO? Steelmaking, fertilizers. I'm not sure if this is possible, but we should focus on this at the first stage to resolve this issue, to understand if we really need to set the targets for the industry in Europe, because we've heard that there are different solutions like CCS, for example, and maybe the RFNBO hydrogen for the fertilizers production or for the steel making is not the best solution right now. Maybe we need some more time. For the refineries, for the production of the fuels, yes, this is something what we can make. But for the industry, it is more complicated. And having that in mind, having this clarity, what will be the demand, it is much easier to construct, to engineer, to construct the pipelines. Second thing, even without this clarity of the demand, nobody is building up the pipelines that are, securing the supply in this year. We are thinking about what will happen in 20 years. And most probably at the beginning, those pipelines will not be fully booked. So we need to find this solution as proposed in Germany, for example, how to recover the costs for the pipeline operators, for the construction of the pipelines in the first years where they are not so used. Yeah. So this is about this confidence of the pipeline operators that they are able to recover costs. I'm not even saying about the profits, recovering the costs. And at the end, we've got this collaboration. As those pipelines will go through many countries, we need that, what this new package proposed yesterday provides. So closer collaboration, quicker permitting, all that things needed. But before those 2C, it will be very difficult, even with collaboration, without having clarity on the demand and confidence for the pipeline operators, we are not going to do anything. Yeah. So this is, I believe, what we need right now. Thank you.
Excuse me. So I was mentioning the fact that in the east part of Europe, there are maybe not, let's say, the quantity of renewable which will be, let's say, easy to use. So there is a lot of demand for the CCS and the low carbon hydrogen. In this case, the hydrogen pipe, it's quite important, but the CO2 pipe is also important because you will need, with the CCS to have a storage of the CO2. So have you integrated that in your, let's say, strategy as oil and gas, or are you waiting for a new organization which will be the CO2 organization, European CO2 organization?
Yes, this is quite complicated because, as you mentioned, the CCS could be one of the solutions for the decarbonization, not only for the fertilizers production or steel making industry, but also for the energy or the heating sector. This is something very important. We are in a different talks with partners how to develop that in Poland. The regulatory environment in Poland is still not ready for that, but we see the possibilities even to store the CO2 captured in Poland or for the exporting that outside the country. So let's see that. But I believe we would need right now more elasticity for that, yeah. Because right now with the RFNBO definition and clear target for the industry has no option with that, yeah. So having this kind of discussion with industry representatives and giving them more elasticity, I believe it could be a good solution at this point of time.
Sorry, we have the gas package, but we do not have the, let's say, RFNBO target, which could include the low carbon hydrogen.
Yes, that's
There's a
true.
mismatch between what we want to achieve in the RFNBO and maybe the possibility to use the low carbon hydrogen.
Yes, that's all. And because of that, I'm also happy about this package yesterday, which also assumes that parallel planning, not only of the hydrogen and renewable or energy infrastructure, but also including the CO2 transport infrastructure. So we should have more holistic view on that, looking on the different options and giving this option to the players. Which kind of way of decarbonization you are going to use, yeah? Because I could imagine that not everyone will go for the RFNBO hydrogen. Maybe not yet, yeah? Maybe later. But for the next 10, 15 years, the other solutions will be more viable, more better from the cost effectiveness point of view.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, I mean, there is no limit. I mean, if I want to put my, let's say, low carbon hydrogen in your network, are you going to accept that?
Of course, we don't. I mean, as infrastructure operators, our mission is to transform molecules. Whether they are low carbon, renewable is fine.
Okay.
It's the same. Chemically the same.
Okay, fine, great. But I mean, it's not a joke. 10 years ago, I remember that in Germany, we were, let's say, not having the possibility to, let's say, include gray hydrogen or low carbon hydrogen in the pipe because it was declassified. All the pipe was declassified. So there is something which is, let's say, more open-minded.
I mean, for us as infrastructure operators, our obligation is to transport these molecules. Whether the hydrogen is low carbon renewable, it is because it will be determined by the obligations set on the producers.
Yeah.
But as infrastructure operators, we cannot stop them. We don't have any rule or obligation or task or mandate to do that. We'll accept them. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I mean, for your presentation. I mean, now we will switch from oil and gas to the chemical industry. Downstream, yeah, proprio così. Downstream. Nikolai, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Olivier. Hi, everyone. And thank you, Chiara, for the good report. So, chemical industry, third largest hydrogen producer consumer in Europe. If you count fertilizers in it, second. I was delighted to hear your introductory framing, Olivier. That was very demand-centered. And I have to laugh because whether I'm discussing hydrogen these days or I'm discussing electrification, it's like suddenly this entire town has woken up to the idea that like, oh, hey, we need the demand side to make all of this work. It's like, where have we been the last 5 years? Because policy-wise, we've done basically everything but look at the demand side. We have wonderful instruments of PCIs, PMIs, CEF funding for infrastructure. We have a hydrogen bank, which is a supply side subsidy, which was very well intended, but let's say there's some hiccups in the project delivery. And we, of course, have quote-unquote demand-side targets, but I mean, really, those are targets which were supposed to give certainty to suppliers about offtake. We did not worry at all about at what price industries are supposed to buy that hydrogen, or God forbid, what they're going to do with the products that they produce with that hydrogen and who's going to buy that. And I think it's good that we've now finally realized, hey, none of this is going to fly if we don't realize sustained market demand for these things. And we see that reflected in the ACER report that you mentioned, Federico. I was on Tuesday at the launch of BP's annual energy outlook, in which they try to forecast the future of energy demand globally, but also in the EU. And there too, we saw very little role for hydrogen in the EU 2030, even towards 2040. And BP, you would think, has any vested interest in presenting as positive a story as possible on that front, because, there's a business opportunity there. So very clearly, something here is not quite working. And so if we think infrastructure, we must think demand, because anything firm in that way, memorandums of understandings, letter of intent, will de-risk the infrastructure side, it will provide certainty suppliers. It's the bedrock upon we can build everything. So how do we realize that demand? And then we come back to the main driver, which is cost. Federico mentioned it as much. Well, at least for the moment, in terms of regulatory incentives, you mentioned it, Wojciech, it's very much focused on renewable hydrogen. That, of course, adds cost to the story, because producing renewable hydrogen in Europe costs, what's the average of the hydrogen bank projects, is 8 or 9 euros per kilogram of hydrogen. That's 4x what you pay for fossil hydrogen, even including the associated carbon costs. So that's a problem. You can address that by casting a bit of a wider net, for example, by including low carbon hydrogen in those mandates in some sort of capacity. For the longest time, there was a good reason not to do that, because we didn't have an idea of what on earth low carbon hydrogen is. Since today, we do. And by definition, low carbon hydrogen has to achieve the same emissions reductions as renewable hydrogen. The threshold is 28.2 grams of CO2 per megajoule. We have full faith in the accuracy of those rules, so there's nothing preventing us from, realizing a broader role for that. Clearly, we've also been very, stringent in the production criteria that we've set up. That also has an impact on costs. We think probably there's something that can be done in loosening some of these rules without having much of an impact at all in life cycle emissions, but having a quite meaningful impact on cost savings. And we'll look forward to the report that the consultant ICF is drawing up to that end. And of course, at the end of all of that still stands the question, we're probably never going to break even fossil hydrogen production cost, renewable hydrogen production cost. So at the end of the day, we need a market for that, lower emission but higher cost product. And that's where the lead market discussion comes in. But I also have to caution here. Federico, you'll know a lot more about lead markets than I do, because the steel sector has been working on that for quite a bit now. And it looks pretty damn complicated. And with all due respect, but the steel sector, in terms of variety of products and length of value chain, is probably a lot easier to handle in a kind of lead market framework than the chemical industry, with however long our value chains are and our 45,000 plus products. So I'm not exactly holding my breath that we'll crack the nut on lead markets very quickly. And so we'll need to do whatever we can to bring down the supply costs, because tapping into those markets with a willingness to pay is probably going to take a bit longer. What does that all then mean for our infrastructure development? And there, if BP is right, if ACER is right, if the future for hydrogen is probably not a massive volumes, fully integrated European backbone in the next 15 years, then the future in the short to medium term is going to be industrial clusters, a lot more localized. That looks like a sensible scenario. We should probably focus our efforts in terms of public financing and subsidies on these types of setups. We'll also need to bear in mind the types of infrastructure needs that these industrial clusters have. I'm thinking, for example, about the European standard on hydrogen quality which we'll expect to materialize in the near future. These types of industrial clusters often have very diverse needs when it comes to hydrogen quality. At the moment, private networks are exempted from whatever quality regime will be set in the future, but the rules for maintaining those exemptions are quite narrow. If I extend my hydrogen network in length or capacity by more than 5%, some of those exemptions end and I'm subject to those rules. And then I'm maybe subject to a standard that may not necessarily fit the people connected to that network. That doesn't seem like a wise thing to do if we are reliant on these types of seed networks to, build ahead. So we probably want to show some flexibility there. And then lastly, we'll probably also need to talk to one another more. Asa mentioned it, Federico, you mentioned it, but the TYNDP process exists, and we have full faith in the colleagues from the infrastructure operators to draw up those plans. But clearly, this is a very dynamic space. And again, we ourselves are not even sure where exactly the business case is going. But it makes sense to, as much as possible, build on MOUs or LOIs much more than on looser projections of where the hydrogen demand is going. Let's put it this way. If I'm thinking Repower EU 20 million tons renewable hydrogen by 2030, it looks like that's not going to be what we're dealing with. So a bit more of a focus on bottom-up planning in terms of demand development, and much more of a focus on supply-side cost reductions to realize that demand, because otherwise none of this is going to work.
You don't like the aspirational target?
Love a bit of aspiration, but it should probably not be the basis for large-scale investments, especially not when they are subsidized by European taxpayer money. So if we were to build a network, for example, for 20 million tons of renewable hydrogen by 2030, that would be a commitment of resources that I think would be difficult to justify at this point in time.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Nikolai. I know that for the chemical industry, it's quite difficult because, the processes are quite complex. Even, if we go, let's say, in the, in the inside of your chemical industry, it's not unique. It's not, let's say, not simple as the steel industry because, you have a lot of, let's say, processes. And the question is that we are not seeing how the chemical industry will, let's say, position itself with this hydrogen and circular economy, because that it's one of my questions that I have in mind. Maybe you have some clarification on that.
Yeah, well, it depends, right? Because we are, again, already a large hydrogen consumer. We are a hard-to-abate sector. We have a lot of energy demand in very high temperature ranges, 800 degree plus for the cracking of molecules. So on paper, we are a poster child for decarbonization through the hydrogen vector, because especially electrification at those temperature ranges, TRL 7 or 8 at the moment. We think we can get there by 2050. But if we think today, not quite there. But of course, hydrogen is not an end in and of itself. Hydrogen for us is a decarbonization vector. If I can decarbonize in a more cost competitive way, I'm going to do that. And at least for the moment, it doesn't look like decarbonizing large scale with renewable hydrogen is the most cost competitive vector. In fact, it's the opposite. It's probably close to the bottom of the list behind CCS, low temp, you can electrify. My God, you could even try to buy all of the biomethane guarantees of origin on the planet, to make some advances there. That doesn't need to be the case. It's the function of some of the policy choices that we've made that, contribute to it. We have solutions at hand to remedy some of those aspects. and to strengthen much more the role that hydrogen can play as a decarbonization vector also for the chemical industry. But again, that is a result of the choices that we make collectively in this town here.
Thanks a lot, Nikolai. I mean, it was about the transparency of what we could expect as a demand. I mean, thanks a lot. And let's say, please to ask Alessia to give us another view, because I mean, we were in the industry, but you have maybe something which is more, let's say, transparent, or at least applicable for all. So I will give you the floor, and maybe you could present your association, organization.
Thank you very much. I'm probably going to disappoint you in the sense that I do not have a solution that would apply to all. I think if there was an easy solution, we would already have implemented. So I'm from Clean Air Task Force. We are a climate NGO focusing on the different technology needed to decarbonize and heavily focusing on industrial and energy decarbonization. Thanks a lot for the invitation to this roundtable and for the report. It is a very timely one, looking at the current challenge we are facing to kickstart the hydrogen market and making sure that we are reaching the amounts that are needed. I will try to avoid echoing too much what was said before, because already a lot has been said. I think we all agree from the starting point that hydrogen will be needed to decarbonize a lot of processes that we cannot electrify. But that the amount of hydrogen that will be available are going to be much more limited than what was initially planned. And that will require adapting where we are directing the available hydrogen to make sure that we are using it where there are no other options. In terms of the market, obviously, since we will need much more hydrogen than what we are currently using, it does mean that we are also going to have to develop the hydrogen infrastructure and the transport of it. And transporting hydrogen is not easy. It's not an easy molecule to move around. And I'd like to very much echo what you were saying in the sense that we're looking here at pipeline, but sometimes displacing other kind of product like uncracked ammonia can also make a lot of sense from like a cost benefit analysis, depending on what kind of transport road you are looking at. But when you're looking at pipeline, obviously, hydrogen has a very low volumetric energy density, which does raise challenge when you are moving hydrogen around. So retrofitting pipeline, even if it is way cheaper than building new one, is not always easy and will also take time. So we also have to think the pipeline network of transport in a way looking at what will be available in the short term, in the medium term, and in the long term, because it is not something that will be able to be developed extremely fast. And so on that, and on your question earlier also about the distance between hydrogen production and the use, where possible, if hydrogen can be produced close to where it will be used, that's obviously the best way to do it. However, that's not always possible. We do have a lot of industries spread all around Europe that will need hydrogen, that do not have option to electrify the process that they are using. And so definitely the option of building hydrogen close to where it will be used may be the best, but it's not going to be the only one. And we need to have the transport that goes with it. So when looking at pipeline, also keeping in mind that there will be hydrogen leaks. And what does that mean is a topic that is at the moment quite unknown by us and by the general scientific community. On the policy side, we very much welcome the grid package yesterday. I think there are like several elements that are really positive in it. One of the first one that I want to mention is the focus on coordination between the different levels, between the EU level and the member state level, because building the kind of network that we need will definitely require strengthened coordination between these two elements. We will need the member states to identify their industrial cluster, to identify which sector do really need hydrogen in priority. And then we will need the EU to kind of think this network at a higher level. On that side, for example, the idea of having a single EU core scenario to direct the system building is definitely something that could be extremely useful. And as I mentioned before, we also see the need to connect hydrogen network with CO2 network with different grid and electricity network. And so to not think about the hydrogen network in isolation. However, we're also working on CCS, and we are seeing that like hydrogen, CO2 project FID are quite limited. So the option of low carbon and of RFNBO will both not be very available in terms of amount in the short term, even if you put the two on the table. But that's definitely useful to have a discussion about these two kind of pathways. On the finance part, I think we are all aware that subsidies can be useful, but at the same time, they do have limits, especially in the current context where we have quite a lot of member states that have restricted fiscal availability and that are not able to heavily subsidize their own industrial sector. Moreover, even if we were using heavily member state subsidies, that would also create a question of cohesion within the member state. So looking at lead market does make a lot of sense. And I fully agree that it's not as easy for different sectors. Obviously, chemical is a harder one to address than some of the other options, but there are sectors where it does make a lot of sense. And when you look at the cost, for example, of decarbonized steel, of decarbonized cement, the cost of production do increase significantly, sometimes doubling compared to the unabated production of this kind of material. But when you look at the cost of the end product, you're looking at an increase of 1% of the cost of the end product. So for this kind of project, it does make a lot of sense to look at how we can build a lead market and how we can incentivize the creation of a market that is rewarding the production of product using decarbonized material. So we're definitely very much looking forward toward also the Industrial Accelerator Act now in January and see how they're going to bring this question of lead market and decarbonized product. Although I want to know that even in sector like chemical, that can be indeed quite complicated, you do have some option of looking, for example, at plastic packaging as a direction for lead market that could already help decarbonize, obviously not all the very different supply chain and value chain, but at least some of them as an option to create increased demand. So for us, looking at the situation now, we have a complicated hydrogen situation where we know that we will have limited supply, that the hydrogen available will be limited, that we need to decide where we want to use it to make the most of it, and where we need to look at how we can look more and more on the demand side to kickstart the market. And the transport and the way we're going to build this transport of hydrogen is going to be key in making sure that we are decreasing the cost and making this happen as fast as possible. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Alessia. You did not give the key for having, let's say, these hydrogen infrastructure flowing in all Europe because of all what you have mentioned. I would like, to, let's say, give the floor to Davina because you are going to, let's say, have another meeting. So you need to, let's say, quit the meeting. So could you conclude on your part, and we will, let's say, obviously complete.
I have to leave 5 minutes early. Sorry for that, but it was very good to hear all the contributions. Thank you to all of you. I took some notes, but there are some things that maybe I would already like to respond to. One of the topics, of course, is the demand side. We had a mention of the repower targets, but I think they've already been, replaced by the Renewable Energy Directive targets, which, of course, we see delays in the transposition. But I do think that it is very important that we focus on continue to work with the member states to transpose these targets. We see some very encouraging developments on the transport side. And it's also not entirely surprising that investors are not early in investment. So we can also expect a little bit of a logistical or logarithmic development there when with targets coming in place in 2030. At the same time, we also heard a lot of appreciation for the emphasis on grids, and I think also Abel mentioned the importance of networks for leveraging demand. So I can only support that. And then maybe one small point on low carbon hydrogen, as it was also mentioned several times, is that the most recently launched auction of the Hydrogen Bank also accommodates for low carbon hydrogen, both in the maritime basket and in the third basket. So that is one way in which there is some address. But your points were heard, and I take them home. Sorry to have to leave you early, but thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Lord. You will have the possibility next time, I mean, to complete. Okay. Thanks a lot. So I'm coming back to, let's say, the floor now. Maybe we have some question here. Let's say everybody is mute. Okay. Do we have some question in the but feel free to react. I mean, if you have the solution, because there are a lot of, let's say, okay, Federico, wow.
I have the solution. God forbid, no. I'm not paid enough to find solution. No, just kidding. No, but I think Nikolai brought up a big discussion, target setting. We keep not having this discussion anywhere whatsoever in Europe. And on top of what he said before, demand, it must be taken into account in energy policy. I'm glad we are not the only one saying it. I would like to, can we just question how we are setting this target? Because to be honest, if you ask me what's the ideal target is, we have an idea of an objective that we want to achieve in terms of energy and climate policy. Then we need to feasibility check with the reality of the economics. So we need to talk to the people on the ground, to stakeholders, everyone, check the energy mix of each country, check the infrastructure system in each country, the economics of each sectors, which is going to be bound to consume a certain carrier. And then we are going to find a nicer number, which is unfortunately in between an ideal, ambitious energy targets from the policymaker against another one, which is against the reality of what can be sustainably achieved. Nikolai was saying that before. I mean, can you be more clear on that? Nobody ever asked us, nobody ever questioned at which cost can we consume this molecule. And they drop targets. I read impact assessments on legislation. I was there when Article 22A was established in the RED III. Nikolai was there with us too. There was no impact assessment on RFNBO industrial targets, nor we have ever been consulted in the legislative making process. And now we are seeing these targets. And now we are seeing also attacking the Commission publicly on how the targets are realistic and these kind of big statements. I think it's pointless because the quality of the target, the way target has been set is questionable. So how can we be surprised now? So finding another way of setting these targets in a realistic way, but ambitious, and not the other way around. And Nikolai mentioned also again, the REPowerEU targets. We know how these have been set. You wouldn't believe. It was not bottom up at all. Now, the situation was urgent. So I think the hydrogen strategy is going to be revised next year. We are going to assess the RED III again. The industry associations are here to support the Commission. Anyone? Happy to discuss at technical level what our decarbonization projects looks like and the numbers. This is not a silver bullet, of course, but I think it's an actionable point to discuss at the EU level. Otherwise, we keep going with these targets and back to square one.
The reaction, I mean, because we are going to reach the 5. So if not, I will give the floor to Abel. I mean, maybe to give us his own.
Maybe the last from my side. Completely agree with Federico. Yeah. So completely changing the direction from having things done to having things done correctly from the beginning would be the best solution right now. So I think the industry got an agreement on this. Thank you.
You support Federico. It's the oil.
Yeah, industry is together.
Abel, Abel, what is your reaction to this, let's say, collaboration between the steel industry?
Is for me, as infrastructure operators association, it's not always easy to talk about supply and demand. But when I hear Nicola, I hear you. Yes, I'm fully in line. I mean, the things need to be done correctly, and the only thing I can say from my side is that our intention is to do things as good as possible and to cooperate with you. And we know we have the challenges ahead, but I haven't seen any scenario reaching to net zero without hydrogen on that. And how much we'll have, we will see. But we will need hydrogen and we will need some infrastructure. Now the question is how much infrastructure, how much molecules we will need. But that's something we'll be solving during the following years, hopefully.
Thanks a lot. I mean, Alessia, if you want to say something else, I will conclude.
I was going to say, I think there are a lot of people now that agree that the target was setting in a very unrealistic way, but we need to readapt our plan to make sure that we are making plan for the amount that we will have, not the amount that we wish to have, and that we are directing them where they're actually needed.
You launched the, yeah. Okay. But okay, thanks a lot. I mean, for your, let's say, reaction. I mean, it was for us, let's say, quite interesting. I mean, to address this issue because I mean, we had the infrastructure which arrived just after the demand. So I mean, demand, infrastructure demand. I mean, that is always this mismatch that we have discussed with Chiara. I was not taking a lot of consideration about the targets. Thanks to having to remember that the target were let's say a little bit optimist, if I could say so. Why we did not take that into account? Because I mean, at the end, we know that the hydrogen will be necessary. So the quantity expected by the regulators is, let's say, something which is in historical, let's say, aspect. But the question now is how to practically, let's say, identify what is needed and where we need to put our money. Because, I mean, we will need that. So it was all, let's say, discussion between Chiara and Hai, let's say, trying to see how to identify these new target or this new objective based on, let's say, transparency of the demand. I mean, based on the cost, because, I mean, you could have a transparency of the demand, but the costs are not, let's say, achievable for the industry. So it's something which is, let's say, normal. Because, I mean, remember when we had, let's say, started, I mean, those small network at the beginning, I mean, we were a little bit, let's say, asking some question to our customer. Are you going really, I mean, to use that for more than 10 years, or are you going to have this need? So it took a long time, I mean, on that. And then after, it took a long time, I mean, to implement that because, I mean, technically speaking, there. So we need to start. Because, I mean, if we don't start, we will always have the nice conversation and discussion, but we will not have at least all the questions which are raised when you start your first pipe and when you say, oh gosh, that does not work because of the purity, because of the compression, because of... So you need to start. As a little bit like the Chinese, I mean, they started, and then they accumulate let's say, their knowledge and create the difference at the end. So if we don't start, I mean, that is, and forget the target. I mean, we need to start with something which works and sorry for that. But trying to defend the infrastructure, but we need to start because we will learn in doing. So that was my last, let's say, conclusion. Thanks a lot. To be with us, and we will publish the paper, and we will not, let's say, end with this infrastructure. We will open the discussion in 2026 with.
Yes, our first discussion is going to be on the 22nd.